Welcome back to Seminary Reflections, the show where I, Brandon, a seminary graduate, gives his thoughts on the condition of seminary in the United States, what could be improved, what is going well, and basically just being a voice from within the system to give that kind of a perspective, a little bit more open and honest and reflective than you may get in other places. And fun fact, I did not go to an Orthodox seminary. Now, if that confuses or seems strange to you, don't worry. It confused me and a little bit too when I got that comment recently. So on one of the earliest videos here on the channel, I talked about why you should not go to seminary. I gave some of my thoughts on why you should not be going to seminary. Got a lot of views, still gets comments every once in a while, and of course gets nowhere near as many views as the follow-up video, why you should at least consider going to seminary, because sometimes we just watch what we want to hear. So, like I said, the why you should not go to seminary video is very popular, the most viewed video here on the channel, and I got a comment on it recently saying that a lot of my complaints on seminary, which have to deal mostly with the lack of discipleship and how the education environment may not necessarily be the best environment in order to prepare shepherds to do ministry, the person commenting said, I'm paraphrasing here, what do you expect when you didn't go to an Orthodox seminary? Now, if that, like I said, confuses you at all, trust me, it confused me as well, and it's probably for the same reason. Because when I, and most likely you, when you hear the word Orthodox, we think in terms of Orthodox, unorthodox, neo-orthodox, just these ways that we have categorized theology, doctrine, dogma, things like that. So to hear someone say you didn't go to an Orthodox seminary is surprising, because I very much did go to an Orthodox seminary. But that is not the way that this person was using the word Orthodox. As I went back through and kind of sat with the comment a little bit more, I realized they're not talking about Orthodox versus unorthodox or neo-orthodox. They're talking about Eastern Orthodox versus Protestant or Catholic learning institutions. And for that, the answer is, well, yes, I did not go to an Eastern Orthodox seminary. But this did open up a whole new perspective and world to me as somebody who's trying to have a very robust, well-rounded look at the seminary institution. I did not go to an Orthodox seminary. And from my initial gleanings into it, there's not a lot of options in my area. A lot of Orthodox seminaries are on the East Coast, although there is one within a 2 to 3 hour driving distance from my home that I guess I could go check out sometime. But basically, as I've sat with this comment, although I do not know from personal experience if the Orthodox seminary world would address all of my reasons why you should not go to seminary. I do not have that personal experience. I do know an Orthodox priest through a connection in the podcasting world, and I'm planning on at some point having him on my seminary life to kind of pick his brain a little bit about this world to see if maybe it does and answer a lot of those complaints that I have about seminary. And who knows, I don't know if I can actually attend one, but I'm not opposed to going and just visiting, scheduling a tour, whatever that would look like of this seminary, of this Orthodox seminary, not too far from me, just to kind of see oh, maybe this is the solution. Maybe this is the model. So there's more research to come on that end. Need some more insight, need some experience in that world in order to make a better judgment call. But I did want to address what part of this comment said, and that is something I can address here, because basically the person came to me with a statement of, you didn't go to an Orthodox seminary. Okay, yes. So I don't know what you're trying to say to somebody who wants to go be a priest. And this does get to an actual question that we can wrestle with, even if I don't have the experience of going to an Eastern Orthodox seminary, of what advice could I give someone who wants to pastor, priest, bishop, metropolitan, whatever the term may be in the group. What is my advice to that person who wants to go into some form of ministry in a specific denomination where their denomination or institution, whatever, is going to expect their ministers, their future pastoral candidates, just to keep it simple, to go through seminary education, to go through ordination, to follow the synod and the bishops and all of that in order to get to where they want to be at as a pastor. Because the Orthodox Church isn't the only one that would have that kind of a requirement. Obviously, the Catholic Church has institutions and hoops to jump through, gatekeeping, so that way certain people do get into ministry positions like a priest and all the rest. But even at that, you have it, from my experience, it seems like certain groups of Lutherans, Methodists, Presbyterians, there may be a way to get into a certain level of pastoral ministering, but there is still safeguards, hoops, gatekeeping to keep you from certain titles and ranks. I do know from personal experience that specifically the Presbyterian Church, this might come up in other places, that if you are not ordained in their denomination, then you don't hold the title of pastor. It seems like you get some title like director is what it usually was when I was applying for jobs, and I knew someone who was not ordained as a Presbyterian minister, so they were a director of youth ministry, not a pastor of youth ministry. And because of that also comes with restrictions on administering the Lord's Supper and other things like that as well. That is the part where my knowledge starts to run out. But there are other denominations, the Anglican Church, the Episcopalian Church, other groups that have some kind of, you have to go through these hoops in order to get to being a pastor. Basically, for us to vet you, to step into a pastoral role, you have to go through these hoops. You have to get past these gatekeeping things in order to get to those positions. And there seems to be, interestingly enough, a general lack of that when it comes to the more, you could call it low liturgical, the non-denominational, Baptist, charismatic, and all its different subsidiaries. Same with Baptists and all their different subgroups, where they seem to follow more of a gatekeeping similar to an organization, like a business, of entry-level youth pastor all the way up to the CEO of a church, aka the senior pastor. And they may require some kind of master's degree, so many years ministry experience going into a church, going into a senior pastor role. But there's so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts on all of this, because they do have these hoops and they do have these gatekeeping things, but people can, I would say, more easily get into pastoral ministry in those kinds of environments, because a lot of those things, they don't have the same kind of weight or the same kind of restrictions that these other groups that I just mentioned are going to have. you're going to be not just a shepherd, but also a representative of a specific denomination, a specific branch of Christianity, and therefore you need to align with their theology. Whereas in these other contexts, education, yes, previous experience, yes, but a lot of the other, some form of ordination, maybe, but a lot of the other, and even to say education is a bit of a jump too, because statistically it's been shown that the majority of people in ministry don't have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in some form of ministry. Either they have one or the other, or neither. And what's crazy is that I have both, and here I am, not pastoring anywhere. You want to look at the face of somebody who the system has failed, you can just stare at my beautiful Midwestern face all day long, baby, because the system failed me. I jumped in this world, not the very organized, we have the systems and the gatekeeping and all of that on purpose. On this world, where it's a little bit more business ran, I jumped through all of these hoops. I've checked all the boxes, and the system failed me. I am not a pastor of any of these churches. I'm not. And because of where I'm at, it's going to be tricky for me to move into any of these other worlds. But I'm getting off track here. Basically, what I am trying to say here is, if you are looking to go into some form of pastoral ministry in this world where there is purposefully set up some kind of education, ordination, and other forms of gatekeeping, hoops, checks and balances, you're just going to have to go for it. This comment from this person is true. Like, if you are set on going into this world without diving in any further, and with a little bit of exception towards like a little bit of an introductory way to get into the Presbyterian church, you're going to have to go to a seminary. You're going to have to go through the hoops. As for the rest of this world, work hard, play right, say your prayers, take your vitamins, scratch backs, and know the right people, and you'll become pastor. Like, I honestly wish it was more this way. And what's crazy about this for me is that that was a sweeping generalization for this other group, admittedly. I will say that. But what's crazy about all of this is that I find that the people who complain the most about seminary as an institution is typically people who are complaining about this world. This one over here. I should start using graphics, shouldn't I? This world over here that's like, yeah, we expect you to get an education. Yeah, we expect all of this. But, like, they have nowhere near the amount of gatekeeping as this other world does. But the people who are complaining most about seminary are usually in this kind of world. They go to a church like that. They serve in a church like that. Yeah, something like along those lines, which I find interesting because this world is so much more regulated, is so much more structured. And I guess this is the point in the conversation where it's important to raise one of the points that a lot of the anti-seminary people do bring up of, okay, that's all well and good, but that doesn't mean that it's biblical. That doesn't mean that we should have all of these regulations and all of that. What does the Bible say about what makes a person a pastor? And I find this is something that if you've been following the My Seminary Life podcast or following this channel for a while, you know that I've kind of like slipped in and out when it comes to this part. Because on the one hand, I see all of the hoops and gatekeeping as, it's almost like a necessary evil, to put it without, just maybe that's a little too harsh, but just kind of like this, we want to be so biblical about this. and yet there's so many things that we're just fine with not doing biblically. That's a crappy answer. I know that is. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this argument of should the church have outsourced the training of ministry leaders to the academic world, was that a good decision? You could make a very strong argument of, no, that was not a good decision. The church should have been, throughout its entirety, ministering, discipling, training up its own ministers to go make new congregations, new churches, and kind of this like internal building up to send out. Would the system within the church at some point look a little bit academic? I guess that's possible, but should it have outsourced it completely? I think you can make a fair argument of no. The part that I keep going back and forth on is where we're at now. This is the system that is in place now. And I'm sorry, I went from being very sensitive, and I'm still pretty sensitive, but being very sensitive to just kind of in this place of, you can rage against the machine if you want. I do. But at some point, raging only gets you so far. And I think if you're only ever raging against the system, awareness is important, but somebody's got to make changes. If you do not like the seminary institution and think that churches should be doing something different to prepare its people, to disciple their people, to minister in the church, then maybe you just need to stop complaining and start doing. Maybe you need to be the person who's going to be the catalyst for that. But I keep going back and forth on this whole, is the gatekeeping necessary? Is the institution, the hoops, the all of that, is it necessary? Because people slip through the cracks. We're always going to find examples on both sides of people who slip through the cracks and are not good. Just as for every person that you find who went through the seminary system and became a toxic narcissist who derailed their church, there's always going to be Mark Driscoll, a guy who would brag about the fact that they planted a church after having never attended a church and didn't have any of the education. Like, you will find examples on both sides. Is the systems in place flawed? Probably, yes. I think I can agree that there are times where the system is indeed flawed, probably because humans are running them. But is having some kind of safeguarding, the gatekeeping, the hoops, are they all bad? And this is where people stop liking me, because in my mind, if this is the system that's at play, yes, we should be working to reform and to change things, but we also need to accept the fact this is how it is played out. Until actual change can take place, these are the rules. It's like the fact that in basketball, you just can't pick up the ball and run with it. Like, would basketball be easier? Obviously, because people cheat that rule all the time. No traveling. We cheat that rule all the time. But this is the system that is in place. It needs reforming, and yelling about it only gets you so far. If you want to see changes where people can get into can get into ministry while bypassing the institution of seminary, they still need to be somehow trained to do ministry, however you want to define that. They need to be, I'll use a broader, more biblical term. They need to be discipled to minister. That part still needs to take place. And I think that is a lot of the times where this all can come down to. How are the people being prepared to minister? And that it is from there that we branch off to either, well, they don't need to go to the system. Okay, well then how are you preparing the people for ministry? How are you discipling people to move into ministry? Or you need to go through all the institutional hoops. Something needs to change. I do agree. Something needs to change. But I'm in a place right now where I'm kind of back leaning more this way of, look, some of these gatekeeping things, some of these hoops, even though I was burned by the system, I do think some of them are necessary. I really do. Do they need to be reformed? Do they need to? Yes. But I think we do need some way to adequately disciple somebody to go into ministry. So if for some reason you are still watching this video, God bless you. If you're still watching this video and you are the person who's like, okay, I want to minister, I want to be a pastor in this kind of world where it is expected of me to go to seminary, to do this, to do that, to jump through all these hoops before I become a pastor, I guess my best advice for you is, Lord bless you in your journey. Like, you're gonna have to jump through these hoops. If you're somebody who hates that I'm just saying, okay, yeah, you gotta go, like, these are the hoops, you need to be part of the proactive change to disciple people to go into ministry. And yes, this is not a quick solution fix. There is no cosmic reset button for all of us to push, and now we can go this way of true, authentic discipleship to prepare people for ministry. That is a change that if you want it to happen, you need to get started on it now, because you're not going to see it in this lifetime. You're just not. But I do think it is possible. I do think it is possible to right the ship to get us to this place of the church discipling people to go into ministry, however that may look like, because it doesn't just have to be pastoral ministry. But that is a big change that just yelling at the clouds like Abe Simpson is only going to get you so far. I'm gonna get so many comments. I'm good. I'm glad I'm in therapy. Okay, so that's it. So yes, with all of that to say, is I did not go to an Orthodox seminary. Fun fact. But maybe I'll try to at least visit one sometime and talk to a few people and see. Maybe they can address a lot of my complaints in that video. And if you want to check the one out, I will advise you to go subscribe to the channel and flip through the inventory of videos and watch what you fancy. Here on Studio 219, this is a place for faith and pop culture. So if you're into that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button. Like this video if you somehow did like it. I feel like I probably upset everybody by the end of that rant, but like this video. Or I guess everyone can just, and I'll never do this one again, and leave a comment, your own thoughts on all of this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.